All right, testing, testing. Hello, hello. How's it going, everybody? You able to hear me? Hello, hello. How's it going? How's it going? We will transition to the scene or the next screen here soon. Sorry for the wait. I'm just there. We go. All right. I just want to make sure the audio is okay. All right. Hello, everybody. How's it going? Welcome back to another live stream. It's been a little bit since we've done this. Like maybe what, like a month? I think we did one for Jurassic World Rebirth. Has it been like a month? I don't know. I haven't. I'm gonna be honest. I've lost all track of time. Yeah, but yeah. Give me a second. I'm just finishing some things up. There we go. All right, there we go. That's what you're gonna be seeing for like the next hour and a half. Yeah, but yeah, yeah. There you go. So if you're a part of my Discord server, then you've already kind of heard my like initial thoughts on the movie. Which by the way, I guess there should be a more professional way to start the stream, I guess. But uh, what is it? Yeah, so yeah, Primitive War came out this week, and it only came out in select theaters. Apparently for 5 days only. Um, which I thought was interesting, but at the same time, it doesn't surprise me considering it's an indie film. Um, so, to my surprise, my friend Julian, who I've had on the live stream uh, before, I think he was in the dinosaur books. I almost said iceberg. The dinosaur books live stream that we did like a couple months back. He was in that one. He ended up finding out that one of the showings for Primitive War was going to be in a place that was like an hour away from the both of us. So raise my mic volume. Yeah, give me a second. I got you. It's already kind of high. Maybe the stream's just kind of fucky. Testing, testing. Is that good? Is that all right? I raised it a little bit. It's in the yellow now, so that's we don't want to get we don't want it to get to the red, or else it'll sound like shit. um, but yeah, we were able to find a place. I believe it was in Round Rock, Texas. So we found a place that was airing that was showing it. So I got to see it. Um, and it was not the worst theater experience I've had. It was actually really fun. It was nice to just be able to go out and watch a movie like that, because there's not a whole lot of movies out these days that I actually like want to go see. Primitive War is something that I wanted to see because dinosaurs, obviously. Of course, of course. You guys, let me know if there's any other things wrong with the live stream. You guys are my eyes and ears out there. I'm just chatting. All right, so I apologize if I overlook some of the more technical difficulties. Um, but yeah, I saw the movie last night, and it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. I feel like a lot of people were kind of like not. I think they just, because the movie had a lot of like kind of behind the scenes issues. uh so I think a lot of people kind of lost hope that the movie was going to be any good. And here's the thing, the movie is not exactly, it's not great. It's not like a good movie at all by like, I guess, uh objective standards. But it's a fun movie. That's kind of what I left off with by the time I left the theater, is that I didn't regret my watch with the movie because it was at the very least entertaining. It was a fun movie, and I thought like, okay, the concept of dinosaurs in Vietnam, to me at least, is not inherently bad. You know, I think you can make the movie work, like, as a movie, that is, right. I think you can make the movie work if you maybe kept it minimal, right? Like you can make it feel realistic, you can make it a good story if you made it more minimal, uh, in comparison to something like what we got, with Primitive War, right? But that's not what happens here, obviously. In Primitive War, they go like fucking balls to the wall crazy with shit. They 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 just decided to take this the dinosaurs in Vietnam concept, and they just decided to say like, fuck it and go crazy with it. And you know what? I have to respect them for doing that, because I think it is so easy to want to do a dinosaur film and then want to reel it back because you're in this constant state of wanting to stick to something more realistic and something more, grounded, versus versus just saying screw it and just doing something crazy with a concept that is already pretty crazy. So overall, I think they did a decent job making it entertaining. It was a fun movie, and I think that obviously is what it mainly has going for it. I think everything else is at best okay and just bad at worst. Like aside from that, like there's it's not like god awful. It's not the acting wasn't terrible. The dialogue was a little bit cringe. I won't lie. The dialogue in some parts were definitely cringe. Expect, if you're gonna go see this movie, expect the F-bomb like every other sentence. It's like the person who wrote the movie. Here's the thing: Julian has more of an experience talking with people who are. I do too, because I have family that are in the military. But Julian has talked to people who are in the army specifically, apparently, and he tells me that the sailor mouth aspect is very accurate. So I don't know about that, just from the people that I've talked to in my family. Sure, but it's not nearly as bad as what was featured in the movie. But I feel like the people that wrote this movie are people that are like, oh, I want like the Jurassic World movies to be rated R, but like, obviously they're not, Universal's not going to do that. So I'm going to write my own rated R dinosaur thing. I'm gonna write it so that it's rated R, and they just throw F-bombs in there like every other sentence. That's what it felt like. And it was kind of funny in some parts, but by the end of the film, you're just like, okay, can you like say something else? Yeah, but I don't know. It was yeah. It wasn't like, it didn't like completely take me out of the film. It wasn't that bad. Also, I'm sorry for all the people that are joining the stream and I just haven't greeted. Hi Ghidorah, how's it going? Hi Gambit. Hi everybody else. I'm so tired. I was originally going to do a face cam for this stream, but last minute I decided, yeah, I'm not gonna do that. I look like garbage. I am so tired right now. But I wanted to do this stream because I missed live streaming, and I thought it would be fun just to talk about a movie that I watched. Just last night. And so yeah, those are kind of the thought. That's kind of the thought that I had leaving the theater. Those were kind of my first impressions. But after thinking about it for a little bit longer, I did come up with a little bit more of my likes and dislikes regarding the movie. Now I know there's a lot of I don't know about like a lot of, I just know of a couple of behind the scenes stuff. There's probably more. I know of like the AI stuff for the conceptual art for Primitive War. I know of there's apparently like sexual misconduct allegations with one of the actors, and the reason why I'm even bringing that up is because every time I see people talking about this movie, those two aspects also come up, and I just want to throw it out there right now that while those two aspects definitely suck and I don't like it or condone it, those are obviously going to be separate from my overall review of this movie. Yeah, there's apparently, there's been a lot of shit that's been said about this movie and its development, and obviously there's also like, what is it? There was that thing that happened with like Ethan Pettis a while back where he went on like a Twitter tirade insulting a bunch of people who like the Jurassic World movies. There's that gets brought up too. I know I know I'm mentioning this stuff, but I have no real plans to mention it after this point. But I'm only mentioning it because I feel like there are gonna be people that might say like, oh, it would have been, it probably would have been a better movie if this and this didn't happen. And it's like, okay, well, you know, that stuff sucks, but again, I'm going to keep it separate from like my personal thoughts. That's just what I want to throw out there. Also, I'm sipping on a chai latte right now. Hold on, give me a second. I wonder if this gets picked up on the on the mic. Give me a second. Did I get picked up at all? Hold on. Anyways, let's go ahead and... Sorry, I want to try that at least once. Alright, I'm done fooling around. Very British of you, sir. Heard it loud and clear. I will find you. Oh, man, that was funny. Sorry. Ghidorah, Diego slurp ASMR before. Oh yeah,
You made my pregnant ass get up.
Gambit hates it when I do that.
Hate when you slurp it. You're horrible. I'm sorry, did that hurt?
No, you're good.
Kiss your forehead.
Ghidorah was like Diego slurp ASMR before GTA 6 is wild. That's so funny. Hi, Jack. Yeah, I'm sorry. You guys can't see any of this. I'm saying hi to the dog right now. Hi, Jack.
Jack, do you have anything you want to say about the movie?
I don't think the mic's picking any of that out. Alrighty. Bye. Verbal abuse, obviously, as you can see. Alright, so I guess I'll go through like my dislikes first. I have just a handful of likes and dislikes, and this is just from the first watch. Obviously, upon a second watch or a third watch, I might develop different opinions, different ideas. Maybe I'll like one aspect of the film that I like might change, and maybe I'll dislike it by a second watch, and vice versa. Stuff like that can happen. But this, as far as my opinions go in this live stream, it's coming from my just first initial watch of the movie. So I just want to throw that out there first too. Oh god, sorry. I'm so sorry. I don't care. So my first dislike is the fact that, I'm not gonna lie, as fun as the movie was, it did take a while to kind of get there. I remember the movie taking like the first half an hour of the movie, I want to say, were probably the most boring. Which honestly is not bad, because how long was the runtime for this movie? Give me a second. Before we watched the movie, Julian had told me the movie was like 2.5 hours long. Yeah, it's 2 hours and 15 minutes. So, yeah, it was a pretty long movie. But honestly, for the first half an hour, like, it's not that bad. It's not really that long of a wait, but yeah, first half hour was pretty boring. Not much happens. It's just characters talking, and the dialogue's cringe, and it's really nothing. It's just a bunch of setup, which is fine. It's just everything could have probably been written just a little bit better. But honestly, I think overall, I don't think the wait is like that bad. It was just kind of like a minor thing for me, that it just kind of took a while, and it was probably more than 30 minutes, maybe less. I don't know. You kind of lose track of time when you feel kind of bored, and yeah, it's just overall it felt like it kind of took a while to get there. And when the dinosaur action sequences did get there, at first they felt you kind of get the generic like, what the hell were those things? And then not realizing what they're up against are clearly dinosaurs. They're their first like knee jerk reaction is to say, "Oh, what the hell were those things?" You know, and it's just, you know, you get a lot of those like cliche kind of lines with these kinds of movies. I like how everybody's focused on the dog, like was just focused on the dog. We just kind of derailed the stream for the dog. My brother found the opening scene with the attack on the village entertaining. Uh, it was all right, I guess. I mean, I don't know. I feel like it didn't really. It wasn't all that different from what you usually see in these kinds of war movies. Which, you know, obviously, I mean, that might be the point because at the end of the day, it's not just a dinosaur movie. It is also a war movie. It does take place during the Vietnam War. It does establish that it takes place during 1968. Actually, one aspect of the film that it did, it's kind of a small detail, but Julian pointed it out. And when he pointed it out, I thought it was actually really cool. He told me in the book the main raptor dinosaur. By the way, I'm gonna be spoiling the hell out of this movie. Okay, I probably should have given that warning earlier. Just letting you guys know now. Spoiling the movie. If you don't want it spoiled, maybe leave the stream. But and I might spoil some parts of the book, even though I haven't read it. But Julian was telling me about it, so I'm gonna point out some things. So yeah, just telling you guys that right now. Apparently, in the book, the main raptor enemy, I guess, the main dinosaur or one of the main dinosaur antagonists, if you will, was a Utah raptor, which they name drop in the book apparently, which is weird because the Utah raptor wasn't discovered until what, the 70s, and it wasn't named until the 90s. That was what Julian was telling me anyway. So the fact that they're naming a dinosaur that technically didn't exist to the you know, to the public in 1968 in the Primitive War book was kind of, you know, it felt out of place. It felt weird. In the movie, they actually don't mention the dinosaur's name at all. In fact, they don't know what did it. I think in one sequence, the female lead, who's a paleontologist, actually says that it may be a new species of raptor. So, you know, basically, the movie corrected what the book was, you know, what the book did. And I thought that was actually a really, really cool detail. They never name drop the main, like, huge raptor that's in the movie. So even though you can tell that it's a Utah raptor, they don't actually say its name at all, you know, which I think is a nice detail. So that's cool. I think because that works, you know, because that's something you don't really take consideration in, you know, in these modern dinosaur films where it's like, okay, well, if you did a period piece and you were going to add dinosaurs to it, I guess if you were going to add certain dinosaurs, you'd have to be, like, if you wanted to keep it within the realms of, you know, if you wanted to keep it grounded and wanted to keep it realistic, I guess you would have to take consideration in that too, which, you know, that's something that I didn't really think about until Julian pointed it out. So I thought that was very interesting and a really cool little just detail the movie did. Julian did tell me that the movie did correct, and you know, like, the movie was faithful to the book according to Julian. Okay, I'm gonna blame Julian on this. You know, anything that has to do with the book, I'm blaming Julian. Okay, just so you guys know, he did tell me that the movie was for the most part pretty faithful with the book, but they did correct some things. Like, for example, oh, sorry. Hi, Deck. How's it going? Thank you for the $5. Zoid Fun. I'm tired of people wanting Dino Gore. They feel like people who are insecure about liking dinosaurs because of their association with kids. I don't really have a huge problem with dinosaur gore. I think there's ways to do it that's, like, not cringe. But overall, I don't know. I'm pretty open with any kind of depiction of dinosaurs, so, you know, that's just kind of me. But that is some what is it? That is an interesting thing to bring up, though, Deck, because this movie does feature a lot of gore. So, you know, if there are people out there that do want dino gore, you know, you could expect that. We'll talk about that in a little bit, though, because there's some aspects to that I kind of liked and kind of didn't like. You know, we'll get to it. But what was I on about? I was on about something. I completely forgot. I lost my train of thought. It's late. I apologize. Um, but yeah. Man, I was I was there and I lost it. That's gonna happen a lot. I apologize. All right. There's a lot of things that I want to say about the film, but my brain scattered. I do have notes, so that's gonna help me a little bit. Um, but I'll just what is it? I'll continue with the notes, and if the thought comes back, bro, if you're tired, go to sleep. I will. I mean, the live stream's not gonna last that long. Like it's just gonna be like an hour, if that. Like I have a lot to say, but I'm gonna try to say it within like a reasonable amount of time. So he napped for like 4 hours. That's so true too. That sucks because like we had a busy day today, and then I napped when I got home, and then like I'm still tired. This is just the aftermath of the nap. This is what's happening. Um, oh yeah, and then I totally forgot. I told myself I was gonna work on like video stuff after this too, because I have a video project that I'm trying to work on and get out before November. So yeah. Actually, you know what? It's a good thing that the CGI was brought up because that's actually next on my notes. The CGI for the most part was good. I will admit, for an indie film, it wasn't bad at all. In fact, I think their budget. I've seen a couple of different numbers. Julian was telling me last night that it was about 6 million, and I looked online and some people are saying 7 million. So like it's I think it's around that range, give or take. But like that's like not a bad amount of money for an indie film, and I think the director Luke Spark, I think he did a good job using that money because a lot of the dinosaur sequences, the CGI portrayed in those sequences were for the most part really good. There were some parts that were like a little iffy. It wasn't terrible. It wasn't bad. Ghidorah, I'm gonna fucking ban you. I swear to God. I look down for 2 seconds and I see that. Anyways, yeah. So obviously, in a film like in an indie film like this, obviously some scenes are probably gonna be not that great. They're gonna be iffy. Uh, Everybody, just shut up. Move on from this. Oh man, but yeah, they're not everything's gonna be perfect. So, but I'm still gonna point it out that there were some things that were a little, there were some scenes of the CGI that were just a little not that good. There was like a specific scene where they were like on the river on the boat, and they're looking out on the riverbank, and it's just I think it appeared in the trailers where you see the dinosaurs on the riverbank. It's not. I feel like that specifically that shot is just the CGI is not that great in that shot. There's a lot better CGI portrayed in the film. Like the dinosaurs are overall were done better with their CGI in other parts of the film. I think that specific one was like it just looked off. It looked weird. The dinosaurs looked like they were like far away rendered models of a like of one of the Jurassic World evolution games, which isn't bad because those games don't look bad, but in a movie setting, that kind of animation does feel a little off. But for the most part, the dinosaur like CGI, the dinosaur animation, and the dinosaur designs, I really did like the designs. The dinosaurs were very, very colorful, and I always love seeing that in dinosaur movies. I love seeing like a variety in color, a variety in pattern, and I felt like we got to see that a lot in this movie, especially the male T-Rex. It had this really cool like yellow. I almost want to say it's not leopard. Leopard is not the color that it's not like the pattern that I'm thinking of. Well, maybe it is. I'm not sure, but it did have like a very nice like yellowish multicolored pattern kind of going on with its skin, and I really liked it. And I did like the overall design of the T-Rexes. I'm not gonna lie, there were some dinosaurs that were very obviously copied or at least quote unquote inspired, if you want to stretch it to that length, by some of the dinosaur designs in the Jurassic World movies. Obviously, the Apatosaurus, very clear ripoff of the Apatosaurus in Jurassic World, in the Jurassic World movies. Um, if you look at the male T Rex hard enough, you can definitely see some elements of Rexy in there. But aside from that, the male T Rex and especially the female T Rex are done very well. I really do like the way they looked. I liked that for the most part the dinosaurs are done pretty realistically. But the T Rexes are the one exception where their build has more of a retrosaur vibe to it, coupled with like scientific accuracy, which I thought was really cool. I really did like. I love it when when filmmakers and artists of any kind do that, when they mix like inaccurate and accurate together when it comes to dinosaurs. Um, the build for the T Rexes are more akin to that of like the V Rexes from 2005's King Kong. The male Rex's color pattern reminded me a lot like the African painted dogs. Let me look that up real quick and see if that's close to what I was talking about. Oh yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, I would agree. That's pretty close to what I'd say I was trying to describe. I didn't know that dog existed, so I couldn't use that as a reference. But yeah, I did like the T Rex. I loved the way the T Rexes looked. I will admit. I know that some people were, because obviously that's going to be a big point of criticism when you're doing a modern dinosaur movie. If you make it look too much like anything belonging to the Jurassic World franchise, which I totally get that criticism, because the whole point is to have dinosaur films that are not at all a part of that franchise. We want to have dinosaur films that are separate from that franchise. So to see some of the dinosaur designs being taken from that franchise and being used in a film that's supposed to be separate from that, I can see why that annoys people. But luckily, that's only limited to a couple of dinosaurs. Aside from that, everything else looks pretty good. The raptors looked really nice. Um, it's just some of the dinosaur sequences were kind of cringe. I think the worst one was the one they released a clip of, which honestly, for marketing sake, was probably not the best idea, but to like save room for all the other much better dinosaur sequences, it was a good idea. But it was that scene where they're like they're shooting they're shooting down all of the Deinonychus that are they're in the middle of the jungle, and they're being surrounded by the Deinonychus, and they have to shoot them down, and you just hear, I think it was Baker, the main character, I think it was like, one shot, one kill, and, you're hearing them say like, how many of these guys are there, it's just it's the dialogue. The whole scene is absurd. It's just the massive onslaught of Deinonychus, the nearly endless onslaught of them, right? They're coordinated enough to try to take down this small group of people, right? And they're willing to risk their lives. Hundreds of them are willing to risk their lives to take down the small group of people. And these people are shouting out the most basic like soldier speak you'd hear in war films, or in video games even, like one shot, I thought that was so dumb, but I don't know, maybe that's normal in, amongst like when you're out there in the field as a soldier, maybe that's normal. I don't know, I've never heard of it, but that just sounded kind of weird to me. Yeah, I think that's the problem when it comes to design. The JP designs, I don't want to say monopolize a look, but they became the de facto look for these animals. I feel undermine the great looks. I do agree, and I don't think that the Jurassic, well, here's the thing, right? The Jurassic World designs are kind of a mixed bag, because the designs from like the 2015 Jurassic World to Dominion were not that great, especially when you compare them to Rebirth. Rebirth's designs were beautiful. They were amazing. I think they are the best that I've seen in a dinosaur film in a long time. Primitive War, I think, in some aspects, does come close to that because the dinosaurs are like you have such a wide variety of dinosaurs. Some of the dinosaurs that appear in the film include like you obviously have the main ones. You have the Tyrannosaurus Rex, you have the Utah Raptors, Deinonychus, you have the Spinosaurus. There's also Triceratops. There's Amargasaurus comes in for a brief scene. There's the hadrosaurs, the Lambeosauruses, I think those hadrosaurs, Lambeosaur. I don't know how you pronounce them. They show up for a brief scene. I think there's also Edmontosaurs. There's also like a Baryonyx or Suchomimus, some sort of Spinosaurid dinosaur that also shows up for like a very brief scene. I think it's carrying like a crocodile carcass, which was really cool. There's other sauropods that show up that I couldn't really identify. Overall, there were just a lot of like variety of dinosaurs, and obviously not all of them could have their own contained scenes, so they were mainly just resorted to being background dinosaurs. Dinosaurs that are just kind of there to establish the setting that, oh, this jungle, this valley that they're in, it's surrounded, it's filled with dinosaurs. It's not just limited to a few species of carnivores. So and all of them look really nice. The Spinosaur, the unnamed Spinosaurid dinosaur, the Baryonyx or the Suchomimus, whatever it may be, they had like this really nice like yellow color palette to them, which was, I thought it looked kind of neat on it. It almost makes me feel like maybe it's a callback to the unused Suchomimus design that was initially made for the Jurassic movies that wasn't used. But I really liked it. It was really cool. But yeah, the overall, the dinosaurs looked really nice. They just looked really beautiful. They had a variety of patterns and colors, which I always love seeing. And they do, most of them do feel like they're pretty, like, scientifically accurate for the most part. I mean, you could probably dissect it and find little details here and there that don't make them scientifically accurate, especially the ones that are, that have a lot more screen time. But for the ones that are kind of in the background, I think for the most part were dealt with pretty, they had more of a realistic look and feel to them. And obviously, I probably should have started off with that because obviously the dinosaurs are the main part of this film. At the end of the day, people are coming to mainly look at the dinosaurs. So I think if you're going to do that, you need to make the dinosaurs look good. And and the great part is that the dinosaurs, it's not just the way they looked, it's also the way they behaved. It's a mixed bag. I've already told you the sequence with the Deinonychus when they're surrounding the people in that jungle clearing. It's crazy, right? And it's just, the whole sequence is absurd. You have so many more absurd moments like that in the film. The ending sequence specifically, that is the sequence where you could tell they were just like if they were trying to make any part of this film realistic, they threw all of that away by the time they got to the ending, because the ending was crazy. At the end of the film, the American soldier group finally make it to the Russian compound that created, and it's the base of operations for the collider that opened the wormhole that I guess was the portal that led dinosaurs from their time into the modern world, right? That's the story, at least. So they make it to this Russian compound that's set in the middle of this Vietnam Valley, and they have this whole plan. They're setting C4s on all their vehicles in the building. They have this plan to lure the T-Rex into the compound as a distraction so that they can go inside and unplug the computer that's connected to the collider, right? And then they do that. They succeed in their plan, right? They blow up the vehicles, but then the T-Rex comes in and it starts attacking all the Russian soldiers, and then you have all the Russian soldiers just shooting at the T-Rex. There's just this bunch of chaos, and then there's a bunch of Russian soldiers shooting at the T-Rex, and as if that wasn't, like, you'd think a group of soldiers with these AKs could take down a dinosaur like a T-Rex. If that wasn't already like unbelievable for the T-Rex to withstand all that artillery, they started shooting the T-Rex with like this huge machine gun on the tank. But that did not affect anything. The T-Rex just went for that tank and just obliterated it. Like, it was crazy. And then if that wasn't enough, a second T-Rex comes in. They blow up the buildings, right? But then the raptors come in. There's this massive army of Utah raptors. I'm not joking. There's hundreds of them that come into the compound. I guess they were just attracted to like the sounds or whatever, because they just kind of come in out of nowhere and they start chasing our characters. And then at the final ending sequence, there's this final shootout sequence when the rescue team shows up and they're at the helicopters and they're shooting down this army of Utah raptors. There's literally a slow-mo sequence of them just, you have the female Russian scientist who's like double wielding pistols shooting at the Utah raptors. There's one guy who's using a fucking machete during this and is just cutting the Utah Raptors' heads off left and right. It was so crazy, just the whole ending sequence. They took this concept and they just wanted to make it entertaining. They didn't really care about like, at least not completely, about everything being grounded in reality. They're like, okay, well, the concept of dinosaurs being in a Vietnam Valley and existing there because they were brought back via wormhole created by a super collider. Okay, that's crazy. So instead of trying to make this work realistically, let's just make it batshit crazy. Let's just commit to that and just, and just make it crazy. And they did. And I low-key respect them for doing that, because it's like I said earlier, I think it is so easy for people to want to do something crazy with dinosaurs and in a concept that's inherently crazy. But they always want to dial it back because, like, there's always that lingering feeling of dinosaurs were real. They're grounded in reality. There's people out there that are very passionate about the dinosaurs being grounded in reality. And then there's also the budget aspect of it, right? There's the budget that often limits people from being able to push to those limits. That's why I also respect Luke Spark and his team for doing this, because they had the budget to do something crazy, or like they had a small budget, but they used it all to do something crazy, and I like that. I liked that they did that. And if you guys like just crazy, batshit crazy fun, I recommend the film. So if this is literally just convincing you guys to go see it, go for it. I mean, obviously it's not released in again, it has very selective showings in different areas and certain theaters. But I think with its selective showing, I think that also means that it's going to be coming to home media sooner. And obviously, when I mean home media, I mean like streaming service. So I don't know. I mean, I would guess that a general site would probably be something like Amazon Prime, or YouTube. It'll probably come digitally through that. So when that happens, I'm assuming within the next couple of months that will happen. So if you want to watch this movie and you don't have showings in theaters, there's that too. You could always just wait for it to come on streaming. I'm definitely gonna buy if they release, which I'm sure they will. If they release like a physical home media copy, I'm definitely gonna secure that. Yeah, but overall the film was it was crazy. I left the theater satisfied with how entertaining it was. So that's what I and I still stand by that. Which is, and that's funny because like I feel like one of the things that Julian pointed out too was that apparently there were some news outlets that were claiming the movie takes itself too seriously. And I mean, come on. like after everything I just described, does it really sound like the movie is taking itself that seriously? I personally don't think so. There were some serious moments, so that's I can only assume that they're thinking those moments are supposed to, like, I guess, encompass the entire movie. But um what was my favorite scene? It would have to be the ending scene with the T-Rexes. They were just really cool. I love the way the T-Rexes look. I love the blend of retrosaurs and scientific accuracy. That's always welcome in my book. I think people should do more with that with dinosaur designs. The designs reminded me of that Project Tapui book that was worked on by, oh, I forget his name. Who was the person who did that? Let me look that up. Project Tapui. It was like a. It was kind of like a their fun little continuation of the Lost World by Arthur Conan Doyle. Andy Fraser. Yeah, he was the same guy that did the is it Novosaurs that he did? Here, let me look. Andy. Yeah, Novosaurs. He did like the Novosaur stuff. But he also did this project called he did this book project called Project Tapui, where it was like I get it takes place, like, it's set in the same universe as like the Lost World, the Conan Doyle book, and it's a document of recorded information about the life on there, and the obviously the fauna on the plateau are mainly dinosaurs, but the way he depicts the dinosaurs, they have this blend of them being like scientifically accurate, but also they look very retrosaur like, and I really like that. So when I saw the T-Rexes, they gave me that feel. I immediately thought, oh, that reminds me of like Project Tapui. I wish movies did more stuff with that. Like 2005's King Kong style, where the dinosaurs were these gnarly, decrepit creatures, but you had some semblance of accuracy in the sense that they're active dinosaurs. They're not these, these like straight standing bipedal creatures like in the original movie. They have more of a horizontal build to them. They're very active. I don't know. I don't know if bird-like is the right way to describe those dinosaurs. I think they still had very much scaly lizard-like qualities to them. So, but you know what I mean. Yeah. Are there any tense scenes? Oh yeah, there's definitely tense scenes where with a lot of gore. Definitely a lot of gore in the movie. There's a sequence where there's the Quetzalcoatlus sequence where the American soldiers are having a shootout in the middle of a field with a few Russian soldiers, and then they're attacked by a flock of Quetzalcoatlus, and they do keep the prehensile tongues that are featured in the book. Again, I haven't read the book, but it's one of those things that I remember being talked about a lot when the book was mentioned in conversations. Because the concept, I mean, that concept is interesting. That's just very cool, and like a very cool speculative aspect to something like a pterosaur, because it almost makes sense. The pterosaurs, they can't, by the way they are built, it's almost hard to imagine they can grab anything when they're on the ground. So when they're on the ground, it would make sense that, obviously they have their long beaks, so that's probably what, that's probably why they've adapted long beaks, so that they can actually, grab stuff from the ground easily when they've landed. But I think the prehensile tongues are such a cool detail. They don't really do like they just kind of show it like grabbing at flesh. Like the way the Quetzalcoatlus kills one of the Russian soldiers is that it lands and it looks at the soldier for a second, and then it just pecks it. He just pecks the soldier. like the beak is sharp enough to where it impales the soldier's stomach, and he's just like disemboweled. And then like his guts are out, and then the Quetzalcoatlus uses its prehensile tongue to grab at some of the flesh, and just bring it back to its mouth and devour it. So that's kind of, I was kind of hoping that it would use it for like, oh, it like in mid-flight it grabs one of the people with its tongues, but maybe that's too unrealistic. But I was kind of hoping they would the forbidden spaghetti. Exactly. Yeah, it did eat one of the guy's intestines. It was interesting to see. I thought it was cool just to see the it's going to sound really weird. To see the tongue in action was pretty cool. That's so weird to say. Um and then there's like a scene where one of the soldiers, and it kind of sucks because I actually did like this soldier. His name was Keys, and he had like this Jeff Goldblum kind of charm to him. I think that's why I liked him. He reminded me of not Jeff Goldblum, sorry, but more like specifically the character of Ian Malcolm. He had like this Ian Malcolm charm to him. But he gets attacked by the Utah Raptor, and the Utah Raptor ends up like disemboweling him, and he lives for a long time after being disemboweled. They were able to keep him alive for a while, for hours, before he ended up, there was no way they were going to get him out alive with those injuries, so he decided to kind of be a martyr. And the facility that they were bunkering down in when it was being overrun by the Utah Raptors, he decided to like, they left him a grenade, and he decided to blow up the facility with the Raptors inside, kind of deal. It was kind of one of those sacrifices. So it was a decent send off for a character like him. But it does suck that he wasn't in the film for longer than that, because I did like his dialogue, his banter with the other soldiers. What is it? Oh yeah, he was the one that stabbed the raptor in the eye. So you have Knife Eye, the Knife Eye Raptor. So there's that. That's how the raptor gets a knife in its eye. During the attack, he manages to grab the knife that he dropped, and just one big stab to the eye while he's on the ground. But yeah, no, it is a very gnarly movie. Also, every time the T-Rexes bite down on somebody, they just explode. Like every time they get bitten down, just blood spurts out. And initially I thought that was just like, okay, well, they're obviously doing that to make it as gory as possible. But then Julian pointed something out to me that I thought was also interesting, because Julian is very smart and I am not. But he pointed out that it's like, if you bit down on a gusher, if you bit down on like half a gusher, the contents inside the gusher will spurt out the other end, right? Well, the human body kind of functions the same way, where if a T-Rex, having a very massive bite force, if all that force is coming down on the human body on one end, it only makes sense that all the blood is going to rush out the other end and spurt out, right? So it actually, when he explained that to me, I'm like, oh, that is a very disturbing analogy, but it weirdly makes sense. And I kind of like that aspect of it. I like it because it feels realistic, but at the same time, it also feels a little overkill. But sometimes I guess reality is a little overkill sometimes. I don't know, but maybe there is truth to what Julian is saying, but it's maybe also a case where it's over exaggerated in the movie. Like, maybe that does happen, but maybe not to that extent. I don't know. I've never seen somebody bitten down by a T-Rex or any kind of animal with that bite force, and their blood spurts out the other end. I've never seen that myself. If anybody else has, you could correct me in the comments down below or in the chat. You just let me know. Yeah, but you know, it's possible that that can happen, but maybe not to that extent, and the movie's just over exaggerating it for the sake of keeping up with the gore and the blood. But that's just speculation. I don't actually know. Also, somebody just mentioned, yeah, there's Isaiah Garza. Also, the snapping sounds that the T Rex make are based on the same sounds that crocodiles and alligators make. That was one of the aspects of the T Rex I really, really liked. Every time it bit down, there was this snapping sound. And it's exactly as Isaiah here just described it. It's like when an alligator or crocodile bites down hard on something, you hear that snap of its jaws. You hear that every time the T-Rex bites down on something, and I loved it. There was just something that was so satisfying about it. It felt realistic, it felt satisfying, it felt strong. Like you can every time the T-Rex bit down on something, you could feel the bite force. It was a nice detail. There's a lot of little details like that the film does that I really did come to appreciate. So I feel like the more I'm describing this film, because I went in here thinking like, okay, well, it's a bad film, but I had a lot of fun with it. The more I'm describing it, the more I feel like, okay, this film is not that bad. Yeah, but yeah. The T-Rex has actual power, and man, does it show when it gets a hold of somebody. Yeah, exactly. I don't know. I do like this depiction of the T-Rex. Now, I obviously I think because this movie is released in the same year as Rebirth, comparisons are inevitable. So if I'm going to fall in that category of making a comparison between these two movies, I'm going to go ahead and say I do think Rebirth is a better movie, but I had more fun watching Primitive War. I would say that. I think Primitive War is more of a fun time than Rebirth. But Rebirth's dinosaurs, I think, are better. I really do love the dinosaurs. I love the T-Rex in Rebirth. The T-Rex in Rebirth was amazing. I don't know. It had that Jurassic Park feel, but it also still felt like a new T-Rex. I don't know. That's just how I feel about it. And there were sequences in Rebirth I thought were done really, really well. Again, T-Rex raft scene. That's a good sequence. That's all. I think, in my opinion, that sequence is better than any of the sequences we got in Primitive War. But that doesn't mean the sequences in Primitive War aren't fun and entertaining. They very much are. And if you guys want that, you'll get it. it's yeah. Yeah, no, there's definitely. I've already seen a couple of comparisons. They're comparing the different dinosaurs. Obviously, because Spinosaurus is featured in both films, I'm not sure if that was a coincidence or if during the production of Primitive War they saw that Spinosaurus also featured in Rebirth, so they're like, okay, well, let's have our Spinosaurus. I'm willing to bet that that's probably the case because the Spinosaurus sequence was something that there wasn't really a sequence. It just kind of it appears for one for like a couple of different scenes, but those scenes are very short. Like its first appearance are when it like jump scares us from the water. We're on the boat with the characters, and it pops its head out of the water. There's that brief sequence that doesn't lead to anywhere. That's just a very brief encounter with the Spinosaurus that just establishes their existence. And then, not long after, the Spinosauruses make their way to the bank of the river, where a small like herd of Triceratops are hanging out in, and they start attacking the Triceratops. And one of the Spinosauruses actually takes down and kills one of the Triceratops. Right, so. And that's basically the extent of the Spinosaurus sequences. There's a couple of other, like, establishing shots that are featured throughout the film that does feature the Spinosaurus kind of resting on the banks of the river. But aside from that, they don't have a huge role in the film. Like, they don't have their own dedicated long action sequence like Rebirth does. So I'm willing to bet that because they have such a small role in the film, they were just kind of shoehorned in there after they saw that Rebirth had their own Spinosaurs. Also, can anybody confirm whether or not Spinosaurs actually featured in the book? Because if they didn't feature in the book, that kind of only further lends to that it lends to that idea that they were probably just shoehorned in because of the Spinosaurus popularity that was coming back for Rebirth. Um, but yeah, I don't know. That was kind of my thought process because I was like, really, there a lot of the dinosaurs didn't need to be there, but the Spinosaurus felt like it really didn't need to be there. Like that whole sequence was kind of pointless. It didn't really lead to anything, you know. But that's just me. I don't mind the mutants in Rebirth. Sorry, excuse me. No, I think it was Caprasuchus in the book. Yeah, they don't. Yeah, for some reason, they don't feature the Caprasuchus in this movie, which I thought was interesting. I kind of forgot they existed until it was mentioned after I watched the movie. But when I learned about that, I was like, damn, that would have been cool if Caprasuchus got to be featured in a film like this. I think that would have been cool. Yeah, I don't know. T Rex pair rampage over the Rancor finale. mm. I will give you that. I do think that the T Rex rampage in Primitive War was a lot better than the final confrontation in Rebirth. But I still do like the concept of the D-Rex. I do like the mutants. I think they could have been portrayed a little bit better. Especially the mutadons. I think I do like them, but I do think that in place of the mutadons, we should have just gotten like a failed experiment raptor. I think they should just exactly a failed clone. I think we should just do. I think they should have just done something like that. I saw some people. I'm not sure if it was concept art or like fan art, but I saw on Twitter somebody had posted this raptor replacement over the mutadons, and it was a velociraptor, but it had like multiple limbs. It was this really it was a failed experiment, but it was alive, and it was just this thing that still existed, and it was alive on this island. I think that would have been cool to see. Honestly, bring in the two-headed raptors. I would have loved to have seen that too. That's cool too. Just these failed experiments, these raptors that are that are uncanny to the ones that we've grown used to. Just bring in stuff like that. I would have been okay with the D-Rex. The D-Rex is fine, but if we're in the context of the mutadons, well, I do like them. I do think that just like weird, disgusting looking raptor clones would have been a better replacement. Would have been a lot better seen in the movie. Yeah. But that's just my opinion. If you guys like the mutadons, if you didn't, that's you guys. I don't even know if I'm saying it right. Yeah, exactly. It would emphasize the mistakes that they are. That's a perfect way of describing it. That's the thing about Rebirth that I've come to like. Just really the Jurassic World franchise that I've come to learn is that the problem with the franchise is that they're always there are certain movies in the franchise that are always like they take steps in the right direction, but they will never fully commit. So we will never get to see, like, for example, the dinosaur horror that's featured in Rebirth is a step in the right direction because it does, it could potentially lead to like more failed clones. We could potentially see more disgusting looking dinosaurs, and maybe we could see something that's more realistic and grounded in reality, like with like multi-limbed raptors, two-headed raptors whose body proportions looks very different from each other, right? It could lead to that, but I just don't think after Rebirth, I genuinely do not think they're going to commit. I think they will probably bring in somebody else that probably has a different vision, that will probably do something different with the story, and that will probably lead to more retcons. It'll probably lead to new lore that doesn't make sense in the context of the films. So while I do like Rebirth in the sense that it's taking a step in the right direction, I know that step is never going to be, that turn is never going to be fully made, because they're just not going to commit. They're too afraid to commit to something like that. They want to showcase dinosaur horror, but they don't want to commit to it, you know? So I don't think that we're going to get anything like that. And I think that's my main criticism of Rebirth and this new Jurassic trilogy that they're apparently trying to make. Uh, at least it's like my criticism slash speculation. But yeah, that's just how I feel about it. That's what I'm thinking at the moment. Who knows? It might change. Maybe a few years down the line, when another Jurassic movie comes out, maybe they do something that's completely opposite of what I'm saying. But yeah, I don't know. Yeah. Um. But this is a Primitive War live stream. We're not talking about Rebirth, even though I'm the one who mentioned it. Hmm. But yeah, no, actually, honestly, I think those are my overall thoughts of Primitive War. I don't really have much else to say about it. So, if I were to give this movie a score, a number score, I would say it's. And keep in mind, this is just a score after the first watch. After I watch it again, you know, the second or third time, it might change. But for now, I think it's a good solid, like, 6 out of 10. You know, for me, it's just one tier below Rebirth. Because I gave Rebirth a 7 out of 10. So I think that's for me where it's lining up so far. However, you know, with Rebirth coming out, and surely this film is not going to stay in these select theaters for very long. Apparently, it's only having a 5-day run. Um, I'm not joking. It's so limited that there was only one showing at the theater that we were going to. Me and Julian, there was only one 6:30 showing, so for the day. And I think it's like that for all 5 days, unless I'm incorrect, unless they did add up more schedules. But I'm assuming that that's done because that's what they could afford to do with distribution. Um, but yeah, because of that, I don't see it being in theaters for. I don't see it uh, taking forever to come to home media. So I think if you didn't see it in theaters, you don't have to worry. I'm sure that you'll be able to see it within the next month or so when it comes out on digital platforms like Amazon Prime or YouTube or whatever other platform these movies release on. Um, yeah, no. What was I gonna say? I was gonna say something. But yeah, that's my score. Those are my thoughts on Primitive War. I won't end the stream right now. I do like chatting and talking about stuff like this. So, you know, if there's any other things you guys want to bring up, well, I'll leave the stream on for another maybe 10, 15 minutes. Well, I'll just be sipping on my chai. Give me a second. That's some good tea. Yep. You know, while we're just chilling here, I do want to, uh, I guess, give an update on my next video project too, since I'm here, and you know, sometimes you forget that you're also like a content creator. You know, sometimes you forget that you make videos, so you should probably use your platforms of live streaming to also shout out your video projects. But you know, sometimes I forget that I'm a content creator. Um, but yeah, I do have. I am working on my video project. I'm not gonna lie. My next one is looking very, very, very long. Like it's on I'm on page 53 in the script. So yeah, to give you an example, I'm pretty sure that the dinosaurs in modern horror video, which is my longest video, I think that script was 49 pages. So this next project I'm working on, if I'm able to fit it all in one video, if I can do that, then it will be the longest video on the channel. Um, because the current project I'm working on has a lot of history to it. It has the current topic that I'm going to be talking about. It has a lot of history to it. It has a lot of a lot of background. It's a very recorded piece of paleo media, um, and there's so much to its story before, during, and after its inception. So, yeah, there's a lot to talk about. A lot to talk about. Um, what kind of dinosaur movies or games do you want to see? I would love to see more dinosaur movies that combines aliens and dinosaurs. And I mean, I talk about it so much, but that's why I was disappointed with 65, was because I love the concept, but I want to execute it right. You know, like I would love to see some kind of confrontation between dinosaurs and aliens that isn't just like, you know, it doesn't have to be violent. It doesn't have to be a war movie like Primitive War. I want to see something. Oh shit! Oh god! Oh no! I think the stream failed. Uh-oh, something happened to my page. What just happened? Hello? Testing? Testing? Are you guys here? Okay, it's still live. It's still live. Sorry, what the hell just happened? That was weird. I'm not sure if that... Okay. Okay. It looks like chat's fine. Okay, did anything just happen on your guys' end? Because on my end, the whole screen just failed. I don't know what that was. That was weird. Sorry about that. Hopefully that didn't do anything on your guys' end. My bad if it did. But yeah, I would love to see the concept of aliens and dinosaurs, like put together more. Because I think there's a lot of interesting stories to tell. But it's just one of those things that are so niche and, you know, probably not as marketable. So like, you know, it would be hard to push out, you know, to do it in a big budget kind of way. But yeah, that's something I would like to see more of. Also, I would love to see more Western dinosaur movies. Like, not just it doesn't even have to be like a remake of Valley of Gwangi. It could be a brand new story, but I would love to see like it could even be something like Turok, you know, like the Western publishing era of Turok, which is basically dinosaur Western as well. That would be cool. I don't know, just something. It would be so cool to see dinosaurs in the Western genre again. I say again as if they had like a long history or a trend, but they didn't. It's limited to like 4 or 5 movies. No, my connection's all right. It's just the screen for some reason just kind of gave up. It's like it went blank there for a good few seconds. I thought the stream failed. Anyways. Yeah, a Predator and dinosaur movie would be cool too. See, I was kind of when I found out that the new Predator movie was going to be called Badlands, a part of me was low key like, "Oh my god. Are they doing it? Are they going to make the Predator fight a T-Rex or something? Is it going to be like a dinosaur alien planet or something? Are the Predators finally going to fight dinosaurs or some shit? That would be fucking cool." But I don't think that's the case. I didn't watch the trailers for Badlands, but from the sounds of it, it's not. It doesn't have anything to do with dinosaurs. But yeah, Cowboys vs. Dinosaurs is the greatest movie ever. Yeah, something like this. Yeah, something like that. Exactly. Cowgirls versus dinosaurs. Cowgirls versus pterodactyls. That one was. I actually really liked that one. The stop motion wasn't bad in it. Yeah, but sadly, the trouble with making dinosaur movies is that they might be expensive to produce in most cases. Yeah, I think Primitive War sets a good example that you don't need this super huge budget to make an entertaining dinosaur movie, because with the $6 or $7 million budget that they did have, again, that's kind of more like just based on like through word of mouth from what I've heard. I don't actually know what their budget was, but surely it's considered an indie film. So surely the budget wasn't that huge. For the budget that they had, they did so much in those 2.5 hours, like 2 hours and 15 minutes of its runtime. There were a lot of dinosaur like action sequences. Especially that ending sequence. It went on, and that ending sequence, and it was not like a small sequence. It went on and on and on. Like there was just so much that were added on. There's so many layers of just action and fighting and dinosaurs and soldiers. Like they did stuff with that budget. So imagine if you were trying to make a more grounded dinosaur movie that didn't have those kind of action sequences. Imagine what you could do with that, with the concept of a dinosaur movie with that kind of budget. I mean, hell, there's content creators on YouTube that are like almost completely independent that make beautiful works of art in dinosaur sci-fi and fantasy. So like if one person can accomplish so much, or if a handful of people can accomplish so much, imagine if a team with a budget that's at least in the millions, at least like 6 or 7, even if it's under like the double digit millions, right? They could probably do so much with that. They can make something that's so cool and interesting and beautiful. I don't know. I think Primitive War shows that you don't need a huge budget to make your dinosaurs look pretty. You don't need a huge budget to make your action sequences, look amazing or fun or entertaining. I think it does showcase that, and I think it's important to note because I think that stigma of dinosaur movies are expensive to make. I think that only pushes this idea that it's harder than it really, like. No, I mean, any movie's hard to make, but it's more like dinosaur movies are like this impossible task. It doesn't feel that way. I feel like it's not always the case. I don't know. That's just my thought. But someone needs to pirate the film. I can't view it. Do you think this will be the Jurassic World killer? No. Absolutely not. The Jurassic World movie is an IP that's very, like, just the IP is well known beyond just the dinosaur community, right? The Primitive War movie is a very niche film that I feel like only a select few groups of the general public will probably go out to see. Aside from that, it's likely mainly going to draw dinosaur lovers into it. But like aside from that, but the Jurassic World films, that's an IP that is recognizable to pretty much everybody, every person, and now it has a recognizable name, with Scarlett Johansson being a part of the cast. So no, I don't think it's going to be a killer at all. Especially after Rebirth did well, or is doing. I'm not sure if it's still out, but if it is still out, then it's doing well in the box office. From what I heard, it was the most successful summer blockbuster this year. So no, I think because it's doing well financially, we're definitely going to get more Jurassic World movies. I don't think it's ending anytime soon. And then you have to take consideration just how widespread the Jurassic World franchise is. You don't have just the movies; you have the shows, you have the upcoming games, you have all of the merchandise still. Like it's a lot more far spreading than Primitive War. Primitive War is they have the book, they have the comic. I think they have a role playing game. I don't know if that's been made yet, or if that's just something that somebody conceptualized and never did anything with. And then, of course, you have the movie. Aside from those 4 things, I don't know what else Primitive War has. I know they have multiple books. And I think they do have, like, some spin-off parts of their books. But aside from that, it's not nearly enough. It's not nearly as widespread or as big as the catalog that Jurassic World has. So no, I don't think this is going to be a Jurassic World killer. You would have to, I think, for it to be a Jurassic World killer, first off, to kill Jurassic World would not be a thing that happens with one movie. It would be a multiple year kind of thing. It would take years to fully kill off the Jurassic World franchise if you were going to use another dinosaur franchise. It would be something that would take a very long time. It would take multiple movies. And if you were going to make this like a franchise versus franchise thing, then you would have to rely on a bigger corporation to make a franchise of a dinosaur movie that somehow surpasses the Jurassic World name. And they would have to be doing it for a long period of time to fully accomplish that, you know. So no, I keep saying it, but no, I don't think it's gonna kill Jurassic World. I think Jurassic World is gonna thrive for a while, but you know, that's just kind of my thoughts on it. But yeah, that's it. That's all I gotta say, really. I don't want this stream to go on for longer than it needs to, especially since it's 11:30 at night right now, and for me at least, and I would like to dedicate some of this night to working on my other video project if I still have the energy for that. But yeah, I think I'm gonna go ahead and end it here. So yeah, thank you guys so much for joining this live stream. It was very fun. It was actually, honestly, I think this live stream is... Oh, damn it. Can I have a Rebirth Tamagotchi? Thank you, Gambit, for the $2. I appreciate it. No, but thank you guys for joining this live stream. This was a very fun live stream that, I really do miss live streaming. I want to do more of it, but, it's kind of hard to sometimes because I don't always have the energy for it. But, yeah. Thank you guys for joining, and you guys have a good night. But yeah, that's all I have to say for now. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you guys later. Adios. Bye.